Hi all, welcome back to another episode of Naturang Batas, Likas, Tama. I'm your host, Jemy Gatdula. And again, this is actually our part 2 of our discussions on practical considerations of natural law, considering ang title nga ng show is Naturang Batas. Anyway, we'll get on to it. It's quite a complicated topic, but quite interesting as well. And our guest, again, is Father Ces Magsino. He is a priest from the Prelature of the Opus Dei, and also a doctor of philosophy from the Pontifical University of the Holy Cross in Rome. And equally credentialed is our good friend here, si David Rosario, from Political Economy at University Asian Pacific. And of course, we keep seeing him because of the fact that he practically serves as our co-host for the show. So, first question to you, Father Ces. And again, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence.
You're welcome.
How can we identify, again, if you don't mind, this is a question I asked in the last episode that we had, but again, I think it bears worth emphasizing. Paano natin malalaman yung pagkakaiba ng isang ordinaryong batas from natural law?
So, natural law, as we said previously and explained, is the same practical reason that we have that tells us which actions are morally good and upright and which actions are not. And so the one that constitutes that law and that gives it to us is our very same reason. Mm-hmm. Now, in that, we can see a very clear and first difference between the natural law and any other law. Let's say, call it a human law, a law that a human author has made. So the human law is something that comes from another source, from outside of us, from a human author, and then it is imposed on us. And then we are bound to follow it because if we do not, usually that law brings with it indicated penalties. Mm-hmm. And if we don't follow the law, then we will suffer the penalty.
Like pwedeng makulong or...
That's right. So, ganyan, no? But then, there we have, again, another difference between the human law and the natural law. Because the binding force of the natural law is not because of an external penalty, but it is because there is something in us that compels us, parang inuusig tayo na sundin siya. Mm-hmm. And that is what we call our conscience. Yan ang ating konsyensya. It's the same reason that we have, but then it is like compelling us, so to speak, to act in a definite way.
Yung sa tamang paraan.
Sa tamang paraan, according to what we call conscience.
Pero sabi nyo, ang pagkakaiba yung sa natural law, walang penalty. Tama ba yung pagkaintindi ko? Or baka naman may penalty, ibang paraan lang?
Yung penalty, we can say, is not an external punishment that is given to us when we don't follow natural law or conscience. Mm-hmm. But it is, in the first place, our very same conscience that will start bothering us. So we might say we have qualms of conscience, or we have an unquiet or a perturbed conscience, and that is a burden that a person has to carry.
Although, kung pwede ko tanong, ito yung habang buhay tayo.
Yes.
Pero tama bang pagkaintindi ko rin na, pero pag namatay naman yung tao at siya lumubag sa natural law, pwede bang sabihin na safe na isipin na pwede siyang pumunta sa impyerno? Asking you now as a priest, tama ba yun? Na kung sakali lumabang isang tao sa natural law, pwede natin sabihin nagkasala siya and therefore pupunta siya sa impyerno or something?
Yes, so that one now already goes beyond the realm of reason. Although, of course, it is also reasonable to think that any unjust action will bring with it certain consequences. Kasi naturally, that's how things work. But we're going in that area already to the realm of faith. Mm-hmm. Yung for a Catholic, somebody who accepts the revelation of our Lord Jesus, he will believe on basis of faith that his actions that are morally depraved will have consequences not only here in the present life, but in the next life. So in the form of, what we Catholics call eternal punishment, in case the person is not repentant or does not turn away from his evil action or his evil deeds.
Father Ces, if I may ask as well, kasi again, this is something na medyo tinake up natin nung last episode, but I think it bears worth repeating again dahil sa dami na rin nagtatanong. So, kasi madali kasing malaman nga kung isang batas is civil code kasi pipick up lang natin ang civil code. Kung constitution, pick up lang yung constitution. So again, kumbaga sinasabi nyo is yung natural law, hindi mo makita nakasulat yan kung saan. Kumbaga, isa ay medyo nakatatak lang talaga sa utak natin.
That's right.
Pero siguro, isa pa nakakalito ron is, in some of the human laws, yung gawa ng Kongreso, may mga batas din na actually ini-embody rin yung natural law.
That's right.
Okay. And I think one good example would be human rights, and also in terms of Bill of Rights as well.
That's right.
Okay. So if natural law is universal, and I think we took paulit-ulit natin sinasabi to, kahit hindi ka Katoliko, kahit hindi ka naniniwala sa Diyos, natural law is essentially applicable sa'yo dahil nga universal siya. So again, the question, yung parang logical question tinatanong ng mga tao, how come not many people recognize yung natural law?
Okay. So that can be explained because of the way natural law comes to us. Ang naturang batas kasi, ang nagtatatag niyan ay yung sarili natin katwiran. We call it practical reason. Pero naman, yung ating katwiran, hindi yan ganap. It's not perfect. So in other words, our reason can make mistakes. And in fact, we do make mistakes. And that is why even if natural law is universal and it's based on reason, it is also clear that some people are unable to discern some of its principles or precepts because of their defect in reasoning. So for example,
although hindi niyo sinasabi hindi niyo naman sinasabi na kailangan nag-aral kayo. It means lang na yung the way niyo kasi kinundak yung buhay niyo na pwede magka-defect yung sa reasoning.
Right.
Pwede rin kasi nag-grade school lang yung pinag-aralan pero maganda siya mag-isip. Maano niya yung natural law. Okay.
Matututunan niya, makukuha niya, matatatag niya sa tamang paraan yung naturang batas. So when a person, for example, might have lived a vicious life or yung, yung upbringing niya hindi wasto, hindi tama, or he might have gone through frustrating experiences or sad experiences. So these things affect the way a person might think. And so therefore, he might make mistakes in discerning the precepts of the natural law.
Kumbaga sa tao, kumbaga minsan kahit magaling ka na mag-isip pero bagong gising ka naman, medyo naapektuhan yung the way mo mag-reasoning.
That's right.
So David, sorry.
Well, I was actually wondering, with regards to the making choices sa natural law, may in a way preference ordering ba to, in the sense na, for example, last time we talked about isang civil law na hindi naman sang-ayon sa natural law tsaka something na sang-ayon sa natural law, pipiliin mo yung natural law. But what if you're faced with dalawang choices, parehong sang-ayon sa natural law, alin dun yung pipiliin mo? If for example, magka-contrast yung dalawa.
Well, so we usually tend to choose an option that will be, you might say, the most appropriate or the most good or the best or the better choice. So when you're faced with two options, both might be more or less good, then you will start weighing the values or the priorities that you espouse or that you think might be appropriate in this very concrete situation. But just the same, even if you might be weighing values or priorities in order to make a choice, you're always guided by some very basic principle. Like, ano ba dito yung tama? Ano ba dito yung mali? Kasi kung itong choice na to, may tama pero may tatlong mali, pipiliin ko na lang ito na lahat tama. So therefore, yung choice mo is still based on the practical reason telling us which things are upright, which are reasonable, and which things are not. So natural law pa rin yun.
Okay. Mabalik lang ho doon sa tanong kanina regarding yung iba kasi medyo hindi maganda yung reasoning or pwedeng mali yung reasoning. So, like for example, ang simbahan, ang stand niya, contraception is against natural law. So, is it, para bang posible ba na sasabihin naman ibang tao, well, mali yung reasoning nyo. Kumbaga, kayo yung hindi maganda ang reasoning. Dahil, porque, for example, if you don't mind my saying this, well, pare kayo, hindi kayo nag-asawa. So, yung reasoning nyo medyo kulang. How can you respond against that?
Well, so, contraception is another topic that is very, very wide and very much discussed, and many things have been brought up already about it. But when the church, for example, has said that natural law or contraception is against the natural law, although she doesn't explain why, but yet we can try to figure out some reasons why why the church has said that contraception goes against the natural law. Now, the only thing that one will have to be ready to do is to go through the reasoning process and to figure out which things might be reasonable and which might not be. So, of course, this will require a bit of effort and an open mind and like that. So that we can see that indeed that stand or that pronouncement about the immorality of contraception is indeed reasonable and accords with the natural law.
Pero for our audience, pwede natin sabihin, itong logic at saka yung reasoning, kumbaga parang siyensya to or science to, may rules siya.
That's right.
Hindi siya parang art na pag nakatingin ka sa isang painting, pwedeng maganda sa'yo pero pangit sa akin or maganda sa akin. Kumbaga yung opinion mo tama pero opinion ko pwede maging tama rin. Kumbaga ito talagang meron siyang tama ba, may definite na rule sa kailangan sundin for
because yung natural law is what gives us what we call moral truth. Yung pagdating sa katotohanan, walang medyo totoo o medyo hindi totoo eh. It's either totoo ba yan o hindi.
1 plus 1 equals 2. Parang ganun.
Okay. So, now one has to go through the process of learning that moral truth, which has to be something objective and totally true. Kasi if not, it will not be the truth.
Okay. Well, that's quite interesting, but we have to wrap up this segment and hopefully you can join us when we come back. Thank you.